Good evening. I'm Sanjukta Nathan, your host for this program. It's my pleasure to welcome all of you to today's knowledge discussion organized by the Public Relations Society of India, Kolkata chapter. PRSI is the National Association of PR practitioners across the country. Our webinar series, which have been continuing from the last week of July, has been vocal about diverse educational and relevant topics and have been loved by the audience in varied social media platforms. The entertainment industry too is growing rapidly over the last few years. In fact, the pandemic has been instrumental in massive consumption of entertainment. Also, the OTT has brought about the emergence of web series along with many other changes. Our today's webinar will highlight the production and consumption of entertainment. So, are we in for surprises? To discuss this, we have with us someone who's very close to our organization and someone whose multi-potentiality is known to all of us. Yes, I'm talking about Dr. Bedo Bhutapine, the award-winning senior research scientist at NASA and Caltech for over 15 years, who quit NASA to pursue his passion in filmmaking. His debut film, Chittagong, in 2013, won 4 national awards in India, including the prestigious Golden Lotus for the Best Debut Film and Best Debut Director, and several other awards in international film festivals. Previously, he was the executive producer of internationally acclaimed films like Amu in 2005 and the documentary called Lifting the Veil in 1997, and has authored the book titled Behind the Events in Kashmir in 1991. In addition to filmmaking, he's a technology consultant to a number of camera companies, including leading movie camera makers such as Red. Additionally, he shares a keen interest in history, politics, philosophy, and quantum physics. In conversation with him tonight will be acclaimed filmmaker Mr. Satyajit Sen. Mr. Sen has over 20 years of experience in the media and entertainment industry, having worked with leading broadcasters such as Star and C as a director, producer, entrepreneur. He donned several hats with a national award under his belt for the film Goto as a producer. Recently, he has school in Kolkata in collaboration with Techno India and consults for a production house engaged in making daily books for leading channels. He's also the board for advisor to a US production house, apart from being in the esteemed jury of the Kolkata International Film Festival and board member of the Irish Film Festival Committee. I would now request our chairman of PRSI Kolkata chapter, Mr. Shomujit Mahapatra, to officially welcome our guests for the evening. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Samyukta. It is our proud privilege to host such eminent personalities in today's evening. And we are extremely happy that from Los Angeles, Bedo Bhutapine is addressing this program. And we are equally happy Satyajit Sen from Kolkata will be in conversation with Dr. Payne. And the whole entertainment industry, it is going through a radical change. And those points will be taken care today. The cinema halls are closed almost, and there will be technological revolution in coming days. So all these things will be discussed today, and I will not take much time. We heartily welcome you in this forum, and we'll be happy to host you in future also. With that, I hand over the baton to Mr. Satyajit Sen to take the session forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shomujit. Thank you, Sanjukta. And Bedo, welcome. Welcome on board.
Good
Uh,
evening, your time. Good morning, my time. I have my
it's
coffee.
very early morning. So is that what that's your coffee? Usual caffeine fix?
Without which I do not wake up, and I'm not awake yet.
Oh, I can kind of definitely guess and a bit, uh, figure that out because it's like really how what's the time? It's
It's
not
not
even
that
seven.
bad. It's 7:05 a.m. So it's
Okay, okay.
kind of
And if I may ask you, when do you generally wake up normally?
it. I'll give you the IIT answer. It depends.
It depends. That's a, so this is like very unusual because we have met during normal course of life in Kolkata. We've met
Yeah,
on the treadmills. We've discussed a lot of things. We've
there you go.
met while sweating it out. But COVID has forced us to meet virtual.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Yes.
and yet we are here to talk about technology, and it is the technology which is making this possible. You are sitting out there in Los Angeles, and I am here stuck in Kolkata. So it's like it's a crazy year. Uh, just a while back, in fact, today we had Dr. S.P. Bala Subramaniam pass away, which was very sad. And he was, as we all know, he was fighting COVID. So it's a great loss for the music industry at large.
Of, absolutely. It's a huge blow.
Yes, and he had sung over 40,000 songs, which is like humongous. We all know how good he was in his profession. So here's a prayer for his departed soul to be in peace. And now I'll jump in to our conversation. Point number one, what we have been discussing all along: is there a new normal due to COVID, or did the new normal already happen, and COVID is making the transition inevitable? Over to you.
Right. Well, first of all, before I even go into anywhere, thank you, Shomojit, for inviting me. Thank you, Sanjukta, for the for for this introduction to us. And as Satyajit said, it's our invention of the digital camera that makes this thing possible. I mean, we in no small measures. Satyajit, are you on a mobile, on a smartphone, or are you on a laptop?
I am on a laptop now.
You're on a laptop. Good. Well, I mean, many times you do this on mobile as well because of 5G, which is one of the big things behind
Yes,
the.
yes, we've done it. We've done it on the mobile, but since
Yeah,
I know that we are
yeah, I
we are
understand.
for a longish period, so I
Yeah,
would.
yeah. I also prefer it to be on a computer. So
Right.
that. So, but I think to answer your question, is there a new normal? That's a very interesting question because the thing that's on everybody's mind, not just in entertainment, but in all spheres of life, from geopolitics to political organization of a country. Uh, that is this just a blip that we just ride it out for next 6 months or something, and everything is back to normal, or has something big time changed? My short answer is I don't know. There are certain things that obviously have come to stay, such as VOD, such as our web series. But does it means movies are gone? So I think let's even start talking about what's the appeal of digital, that is home entertainment, and what is the appeal of films. Well, I mean, films,
So if,
30
I
years ago.
can ask you, let's on taking the cue and on your point. So what do you feel if I have to put theaters versus streaming platforms head to head? What is your personal take on it, and how do you think the audience is perceiving this particular? You know, it's a
Um,
good question, but
yeah, I mean, look, okay. So I think that's one of the major things we will discuss through the next 1 hour or so.
right.
But I want to start with saying that what is, let's just think about it. Like in 30 years ago, just 30 years ago, you didn't have any other option really but to go to movies. TV was a small TV, not great transmission. So movie was where you went for quality, for sound, for your AC. We went to cinema halls which were better. it also, a culture grew around it, for I'd say last maybe 100 years or so, where date nights would happen in the US. The parents would let their kids go on date nights to go to movies. Then it became a shared experience. Like you're in a movie theater, and that's a huge thing. That where something happens, an emotional moment happens, and you react to it. Cry or a gasp or a laughter. That thing happening simultaneously is adds such a texture to your viewing, which you never do sitting at home. But and for movie makers, of course, it's a bragging right. I mean, you got to get your movie released in theaters. That leads to distribution. Leads to other sources of revenue. That also leads to awards and so on. Like even now, uh, Oscar, you cannot even enter for Oscars unless you have run in theatrically. So that's a huge issue, which has come up already. On the other hand, actually, it's an interesting thing that this VOD, this digital platform. If you ask anybody what has been the main determinant, people will say it's the Wi-Fi or the 5G or broadband. But actually, more than that, what I would say is the GPU. This is a new term for many people, but you have it. I mean, your video card is a GPU. So for last 40, 50 years, our digital thing has been digital revolution, if you will. Evolution has been governed by CPU, where you pack more and more computing power on a small chip and make it faster and faster. But nowadays, it's the GPU. How you process your video has become a very big thing. If I give you an example, it's like the camera in a cell phone. Nowadays nobody buys a cell phone because of how good the audio is, but you buy saying, oh, it's a 12 megapixel camera or 8 megapixel camera. It's almost
In fact, the mobiles have put these let's say standalone small camera makers out of business. Right?
Yeah, exactly. So that, and then of course after that, of course, your 5G and so on, an improvement in display quality, and we'll talk about that. Our handheld displays on a smartphone is really good. Our Mac displays, or even our TVs, 70-inch TV, which is now there in many people's living room, at least in the US. Amazing quality, and we'll get into that a little bit. Alongside that, of course, rise of Netflix and so on. Mega mergers that have happened. I mean, think of it: Disney buying Fox. That's a huge deal, and along with that, Hotstar. Comcast taking over NBC and Universal, Viacom, CBS with Paramount, AT&T with Time Warner. So that is also leading to this digital revolution. And of course, the ease of viewing. It's your personal space, relaxed. You can watch whatever you want. I mean, I think this. Let me pause and say that this what some people call a la carte model, but I call it a buffet model. It's a buffet model that has really made a difference. I mean, movie theaters, they will play a movie and you have to go and watch that movie. Multiplex increases the number to maybe 5, 6, but not that much. Here you have a bouquet of stuff. Okay, you start this, you don't like it, stop it. I go to some other web series, or today I feel like watching a movie. Today I feel like watching a documentary. And by the way, you and your significant other don't have to watch the same thing. You can be in two different rooms watching two different things. So I think this has made a very big difference in how we consume entertainment, and both the amount of entertainment consumption. By the way, there's another factor. In a lot of small towns, especially in the US, you won't even have a movie playing. Like Parasite, for instance, probably wouldn't have played in many small towns. But lot more people got to see it because of digital, and for movie makers, it's a great boon where you can get a monetization. Actually, you can get money which your distributor may not even give you. So all of that together, I think I forget who it was. This is J.J. Abrams, I think, said that the cat is out of the bag, the genie's out of the bottle. You can't put it back in. It's digital is here to stay. The question is, will theatricals vanish? And let me actually, can we have the PowerPoint number 1, please? I mean, I think this is a good time to talk about some of the numbers.
Let's do that.
If you have I think the first PowerPoint that Are we putting up the PowerPoint? There you go.
Yes.
I hope everybody can see it. Satyajit, you can see it, right?
We can.
Yeah, okay. Great. So I think what this PowerPoint is kind of telling us is that the main point I want to bring up is that there are a bunch of curves. The blue curve is the global home consumption of entertainment. That is, this includes digital, like all the platforms like Netflix, Amazon, so on, or whatever movies you buy online, say from Amazon Video, or DVDs and stuff like that that you consume at home. Whatever digitally you consume at home, that's a blue curve, and the black curve is the global global just the digital content. That is not the DVDs and all that, just the what you do see on your Netflix and stuff like that. So that's the black curve, and the red curve is the global theatrical revenue. These are all in $1 billion. So global theatrical revenue today is, today, forget 2020. 2020 is a wash. Forget about 2020. 2019 was a record year. For the first time, we hit $42.5 billion. But 2019 is also the year when global digital surpassed global theatrical. It's a huge deal. And you can look at the curve and you can see that the global theatrical has been pretty much flat. The red curve is more or less flat. The black curve is rising very sharply. And 2019 is when that crossover happened. So that's a huge thing. I remember when film, if you make a comparison with film, when film versus digital movie making, it's somewhere around 2012 or 2013 that crossover point happened. And this so digital versus theatrical crossover has already happened, and I think that's a extremely important thing. Next slide, please. Here is a very small quick thing, which is that a lot of people recently, there was a survey that the people asked that if cost were the same, would you prefer to watch at home or would you want to go to the theaters? 72% said that if everything were equal, they would want to watch it at home. Not surprising, but the number is surprising. That 72% said that, and only a very small percentage said that they don't care. But probably another 15% or so. Along with that, the other thing that has been happening is that the footfalls in movie theaters, as you know very well, Satyajit, that has been reducing. In the US, in India. The single screens have been dwindling a lot.
Yes. So what has happened is there are two. I'll interject on you. There are two facets to this particular point. So we've been largely, as you know, as you are very much aware of the kind of journey you had with Chittagong and the multiplexes and so on and so forth. So the business model they follow doesn't generally or really kind of encourage, let's say, smallish kind of films, because it's the same cost for them. And I understand they're coming from where they come from. We had the single screen theaters to fall back on, but let me tell you, the last commercial film I had distributed also. So we had gone and taken a tour of, so we had only done a single screen distribution. They are not in a very good shape. And largely, like you were saying, in the US, some towns do not have a theater. Out here, we would have to credit, like him or hate him, one Mr. Mukesh Ambani and the Geo and the data, the kind of price war he had done and put everybody on the data path. Because I was personally, I had my business in terms of launching the Airtel 4G out here. Geo was not present at that point of time, but the kind of pricing we were offering, even for fixed, let's say, broadband 4G connectivity at home, were very expensive. So I wouldn't have imagined that going to a small town, somebody would have been able to do that. Right now, the situation is completely different. As we've been discussing, and we have this point that the handheld devices, almost negligible. India is the lowest in terms of data pricing.
Correct.
And with whatever consolidation has happened, but with let's say the top three big players getting into the serious war, it's not. I don't see it phenomenally increasing over the next, let's say, 5 odd years. It'll either be the way it is, or it'll maybe go down, because the reach and the volume in India, the population, if you tap a little bit out of it, your volume becomes humongous. That's why everybody wants to jump onto the bandwagon, and that's why you can keep your pricing the way it is. But having said that, the dwindling of the single screens and the explosion of OTT, and again for OTT platforms in India, I would have to credit a lot of this to the Hotstar, because IPL changed the game for Hotstar and the OTT explosion out here, because you can't be stuck inside or in front of your TV. You can be on the move and you can catch the action live. Was, I think, a game changer. So that's something.
By the way, Hotstar, since you talked about, in 2018, I think it hit the maximum number of simultaneous views. It's something like 19 million, I think, users simultaneously used it. I mean, that's what the sports event will do. But that's the largest in the whole world. No, it's not ESPN, it's Hotstar.
Absolutely. And I had a friend of mine at Hotstar who was into acquisitions, so he had given me a very interesting perspective, which they didn't figure out at that point of time. I'm also talking about the 2017's early 2017's kind of a situation. So this guy said that catch-up TV was doing exceedingly well, and that it was not on the kind of horizon for them. They hadn't figured it out, but these families, primetime shows, and they have their dinner, the mom serves, they are not able to kind of catch the serial or the daily shows on your favorite channel. So they were using the OTT platforms, primarily Hotstar at that point of time, to catch up with their TV. So they were driving big numbers there.
Absolutely. By the way, there's another interesting thing alongside that is that even though movie theaters is declining in India, as it is in the rest of the world, except for China. China is the only place it is growing. You can see in this curve. But Indian number of screens per million of population in India is actually one of the lowest. And from the if you talk to Inox or PVRs of the world, they would say actually we need more screens. And we are in a very interesting situation where there's a supply side constraint that there should be more screens, but who's going to put the money in an era when digital is taking over in this fashion? In fact, can we go to the next slide? And I think this is something that kind of shows you what's going on. That if you look at the Netflix revenue versus the US box office, which is about 12 billion now. Well, 2019, 2020, of course, everything has gone whoop, down. I mean, that's expected. And if you look at the Netflix if I project it to the end of the year based on their last two quarterly data, it's just Netflix has taken over. So nothing. I'm not saying anything new. It's just that we're bringing it to the attention of what is happening. But I think there is one more thing that is important to realize in this graph itself, is that, like, if you compare film versus digital camera, film by 28 or 2008 or something was already starting to decline. Film cameras, still cameras, practically became unavailable. I mean, a new generation has grown up which doesn't even know something called the Kodak cameras. Like where you put the film in and then you take it for developing and so on. That hasn't happened. That sharp drop hasn't happened with theaters. So theater, of course, digital has come and taken over, and Netflix has gone in a huge way. So is Amazon, Hulu, Disney, and so on. But the box office collections worldwide are pretty much steady, slightly rising even. So that's a little bit of a different scenario, I think, compared to if I were to compare, say, film versus digital movie making, or say stick shift car versus automatic car. I mean, in the US now, stick shift cars are pretty much not available. I mean, you have to special order if you have to get a stick shift car.
Absolutely.
So
only I think the
movie industry. Sorry, go ahead.
No. I see only the sports car would probably have.
Yes, well, yeah, exactly. And that too, the gear system is kind of quite different. I mean, anyway, we're not talking about cars here. But the point I'm making is that I think the comparison between theatricals and digital, I think, would be something like a comparison between, say, uh, mainframe versus laptop. Both
Right.
mainframe and laptop kind of exist simultaneously, side by side. And I think theatrical and and digital will kind of happen the same way, I think. Um,
Right.
and the reason is I think COVID has also shown something very interesting. I mean, our whole culture has been personal space, personal consumption, as opposed to collective or sort of a community consumption. But COVID has shown everybody is now out to get out on the streets and mingle and meet up with people. I mean, if one thing COVID has shown us is that how much we actually crave for company.
Absolutely. We are social beings.
We are social beings. It kind of has reminded us, which we had forgotten, because in America it's just personal space. I mean, it's so in India in many ways. Even entertainment consumption has become, thanks to digital, very very personal. You watch it on your personal screen,
So,
uh,
so
and that suddenly we've been jolted, and that I think is the biggest surprise for me, for the whole world. That I see this. Okay, our Pachina. I'm sorry to break out into Bengali, but this is a thing that I hear from many of my friends. This is enough, boss. I got to get out. And even in the US, we see that these poolside parties and so on. There's this inherent desire to be social, and so that's why I don't think that uh, theatricals, in this watching movies in a community way, in a collective way, is going to
will
disappear.
never subside. No. I completely agree with you. And another thing which is like really taken the toll during this COVID period is kind of the work from home experience. I have been facing it. I'm sure you would have, because in US and in data tech companies it's been a feature, but it's never been for so many months at a time. And
Absolutely.
and it disturbs everything. Like you don't, your work life balance. There's nothing called that. And you're, I don't know, you're not at home when you are actually at home and working, and like crazy hours. So this is not something which I think is very good for the mental health also of
Not at all. And in fact, things have slowed down, because to get something done which you can do side by side with the people
right,
meeting
right,
across the table or sitting next to each other, ideating, discussing stuff which one thought would be okay if you sat on a Zoom call or whatever. It doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. The body
right.
language is very, very different. But of course, that's another.
Yes, that's another facet altogether.
But let's take the PowerPoint away. I think we have talked about this enough. I mean, there are a few bunch of other things, but I think you get the point. The digital is kind of taking over, and movies are holding steady, except for 20.
Yes. So that is something. So we can really talk about. Can we remove the slide, please? Back in. What we need to do is, or what we've like figured out from this particular, let's say, interesting point you've raised, is there space for both the verticals to grow, because
Exactly.
digital obviously is here to stay, but community watching and going to a theater, watching films is obviously an experience. It's a weekend outing. So that is something which we crave for. And I, for one, personally think that the moment the theaters are going to be thrown open, they've still unfortunately not been done in India.
Correct.
There's going to be definitely an explosion, because people were very apprehensive. They still are. That there have been. I've seen online surveys going on. How many of you would go actually to watch a film at the theaters? But the sheer what you just said, that the sheer constraint of having stayed back at homes, being stuck for 6 odd months, they are just going to go and
Absolutely.
invade the theaters. That's
Absolutely.
to hell with
100%. 100%. No question about it.
absolutely.
But I think if you take this thing a little bit further, I think another question that's coming up is the way it's impacting. I mean, both. I mean, you raised the question right in the beginning: is COVID only hastening what was already happening? I think that we have to separate what's happening to the big studios, what's happening to the sort of the middle. I don't know what we call it. I mean, mid-range films, let's say
Right.
a beautiful romantic comedy or a beautiful drama, that kind of. Say Parasite is a classic example of that.
Right. Right.
Or Moonlight is a classic example of that. Those kinds of movies versus
Even in India, just a couple of days back, there's this film released called Dolly Kitty or Wo Chamak Dis.
exactly, yes,
So
yeah.
it would never have probably made into great theatrical collections, but it's winning accolades everywhere, critical acclaim.
Another great example is Raat Akeli Hai. Raat Akeli Hai
Absolutely.
wouldn't have. I mean, I know very well. I mean, Honey of did the casting for Chittagong, and is a very close friend of mine. I know the trouble he was facing with the movie, and digital space suddenly gave him, and especially in the current context, actually gave him a great platform.
Absolutely.
So I think there's mid-range films, and then there is this even smaller films, like really indie, really art house movies, and they're all being affected in a different way, both in terms of production as well as in terms of how they find a platform where they're viewed, whether in movie theaters or film festivals or digital, whatever have you. So I think if you take that, I think one of the so Netflix, as we know, I think Netflix was very smart. In 2017, they hired this ex-Universal executive, Scott Stuber,
As their head, right?
Head the film division, and
I think he got Martin Scorsese on board.
yeah. So what they did in 2019, last year, I mean not this year, the last year, was The Marriage Story, Irishman, Two Popes. All three movies were picked up by Netflix, and
that one also Roma, probably Roma.
Roma was the year before. And that was a huge deal because that's where the question came up in Academy Awards, that can a movie which doesn't have theatrical be
qualified
for? So they did a theatrical window and stuff like that. So that since we have brought that up, I personally think a big push will happen the moment Oscars will say that, okay, it doesn't matter if you don't have a theatrical. I mean, right now you have the theatrical requirement. If they take the theatrical requirement off, by the way, Cannes, when digital movies first came out, they were very reluctant to put it on. But then, Toronto did it, Venice did it. So they also have fallen in line. So now film festivals, theatrical is not an issue. Oscars, will theatrical be an issue? If it is not, it will really take off of digital, because right now one of the major issues about film is that, okay, you can get noticed in a way that you cannot get noticed in digital. Once that goes, I think all bets are off. But I was talking about Irishman. I think Irishman is a very interesting example, and it shows how digital is trying to corner the space. I don't know if you know that Irishman's budget was about $100 million.
Yes.
It's about $100 million, and Paramount got cold feet. They rejected Scorsese, and who picks it up? Netflix. I mean, it's amazing. And so what they're doing is that they're attracting all the top names, the Coen brothers, Ballad of Buster Scruggs, Alfonso Cuarón, Del Toro. They're getting all of them in their kitty. So they're trying to make Netflix or a digital space as, I think it's kind of like what's that car company did? The digital car company, the one, Tesla. What Tesla did with cars. I mean, all of a sudden they made, is it a digital thing? Is it a car? What is it? Electric. So they made electric cool and acceptable. And I think Netflix.
And taking it from that, I live in an area which is not a posh area in Kolkata, which is very near to where you also park yourself. Yes. Yeah. And you will be surprised that in my locality itself, there are at least about 4 of these electric vehicles. One of them is a Tata Nexon.
There you go.
So and it's like, it makes sense.
It makes sense. So I think, so that's what I'm saying, that I think a lot of the smaller movies, okay, let me step back and say that I think there is this the term I use called blockbusterization.
Absolutely.
So I honestly think that in next few years, movies that would play in theaters, by and large, would be these $100 million+ blockbuster kind of movies. I mean, people will go to see a Marvel movie or an Avenger movie.
I think that particular, kind of that journey has already started.
That's already exactly, and I think COVID is only going to hasten that stuff, because one of the thing that's happening, and I think this is a very interesting situation, which is that, okay, let me give you a slightly short history of American theaters.
Right.
So it actually goes back to another pandemic, 1918. 1918 pandemic also caused a huge problem for theaters. Oh, of course, at that time things were kind of really at their infancy. So what happened is the big studios went in 1930s went and bought up small theaters and
Right.
forced them to play their content.
Right.
So a lot of the mom and pop movies could not be shown because Paramount has come and said, or Universal has come and said, boss, if you don't do this, I'm not going to give you any content. All right. 1948, there was a court case where Supreme Court said that this is monopolization and all that sort of stuff. They actually forced the studios to sell the theaters, and it caused a problem for next 10, 15, 20 years. Things were not in a good shape till 1970s, when you have these blockbuster movies come up, and then all of a sudden both sides, both studios and the theater chains flourished. Now we have come to a stage where President Trump has already brought into, I think they have already brought into an act, I don't think it is passed yet, where they would allow studios again to buy back theaters. And that would cause a huge problem, because the small theaters where you go, I have a thing that before Oscars,
Right.
I make it a point to go and watch every single Oscar nominated movie in any category. And there are these theaters, these special theaters. They're not great theaters, but small, nice theater where you can go and watch these movies. Those will go out of business, because
True.
Universal doesn't care if you get to see a Parasite or whatever have you.
True.
So that is another thing that's happening. This blockbusterization, where only big action animation movies. And alongside that, there is another thing that's happening. In of late, the movies that are going on screens or studio release movies are not original content. It's based on some kind of a comic.
Something. Yes. Yes.
If you look at
creating this universe, and they're
Correct.
either it's Star Wars universe or the Marvel or the DC.
Exactly. So if you look at the 2019 biggest releases, I mean, what gave that $42.5 billion is Lion King. It's Frozen 2. It's what Avengers Endgame.
Endgame.
The movies that made it, not your small movies.
Absolutely.
So I think where we are headed towards, which is not a great situation, that small and medium movies will find their space in the digital only. This is an unfortunate thing that we have to get pretty used to.
But again, looking at the positive side of it, let's say if we're talking about the small and medium, and let's say the non-blockbuster kind of films, which haven't been made with the kind of box office collection in mind, this has resulted in giving voice and giving space to so many people who otherwise would never have, kind of thrived. Let's say Radhika Apte for one, she's become this humongous digital star, and she's the go-to girl for Netflix. Let's say recently, and it's become a comeback vehicle. Let me tell you, for so many of these people. So I am in also talks with a studio about Hindi web series, which has got definite plan, and they have the studio has definite plans to bring in somebody who would be making a comeback based on the model. Let's say Susmita Sen, she made her comeback in Arya with a Chandrachud Singh, who's not been seen for so long, and she was so very well received, and people were commenting on why she has been missing from the mainstream so long, and all of that. People like Rajesh Tailang, like a Pankaj Tripathi,
absolutely.
Phenomenal.
Absolutely. Well, I think you brought up a very key point with respect to India, not so much with the US, but certainly with respect to India.
Yeah. Yeah.
which is the star power. I mean, in
Absolutely.
movies, and that's actually one of the reasons why a lot of people in India think that movie theatricals are not going to go away so easily,
Right.
because our stars,
Right.
um, mind you, I'm calling stars. Our stars dominate the that space.
That
I mean,
space.
they would want theatrical. That's where they get their entire high and their entire PR from. Not to speak of money. In fact, I mean, that's another big issue which I think I'll address a little bit towards the end. Uh,
Okay.
but what this Netflix or the Amazons of the world have done is that it has opened, you know, our audience to great content, which is sold on the basis of the content, not on the basis of the
Absolutely.
star.
Absolutely. Even while the show or the film, which is supposed to go direct to digital, is being conceived, they are only bothered about who your crew is, never the star,
Correct.
because there is no star. You are as big a star as the other guy.
Take this. There's a web series called Jamtara.
Jamta,
I mean,
yeah, I know Soumendra Padhi. We have we
yeah,
met.
I mean, so many shows which are creating new stars, or if you will, new actors. I would say. I mean, I think
Yeah,
because that's another thing that has changed with the web series, the digital thing is writing has improved so much in India,
absolutely.
and acting, which was I always felt that India has a powerhouse of actors who we don't get to see because our
Correct.
movies are of a particular kind. But now those Pankaj Tripathi you mentioned is such a phenomenal talent. I mean,
Phenomenal. And
so
one other good let's say the competition. What has there are always a flip side to it, and the positive. So the positive side of it, since as you were saying that you can flick from let's say a Z5 to a Netflix with your remote or on your device, you are fighting against them. So if you're
exactly.
fighting against a web series which is produced by, and let's say why are we only talking about Netflix? Apple originals are phenomenal.
They're growing. I mean, I had a chart of showing who's what, but I think you have also again brought up a very interesting point, which is that cultural space was dominated by these big studios
Right,
dishing out a few movies, which that's your consumption. I mean, you're forced to watch those. I mean, that's what's going to come in the movies, and
that's
that's what you're going to
right,
watch. Like
right.
Sony said that we curate. I mean, hell to hell with curating. That's not what they do. They want to show you 10 movies from which they think
True,
they will take the biggest bang for the buck.
true.
So commerce takes over art, and that's what you are consumed. That's what your cultural yardstick becomes, benchmark becomes.
Because you don't have anything else to
You know
watch.
anything else? Now digital, that has completely changed. You with the flick of a button, you can mute Sony and you can go to I don't know Z5. I don't have any particular thing, but it has put, at least for the time being, though I'm not sure if it will remain that way, because I think at the end of the day it's going to be a big fight between the big studios and the big digital. That is the
Yes, I am sure inevitably consolidation is going to happen. It's going
that
to be a
will happen. But for now, there is a choice that audience gets. That's amazing. And alongside that, it has also brought up another issue, which is that for last 100 years, movies have been 2 years, or if it's four. I mean, 2 hour long. Sorry, not year. 2 hour long entertainment, unless of course it's Ashutosh Gowarikar, then it's 4 hours. But otherwise, it's 2 hours, right? I mean, that's a standard format.
that's the standard. Yes,
But with this binge viewing, that is changing.
right,
So
right,
I think a lot of things are coming where this guy Jeffrey Katzenberg was the ex
right.
studio head of Sony, Disney, and now he has this Quibi and all that. He thinks that movies to 1 hour television, and he thinks that it would be like that 2-3 hour, but broken down into small episodes. That's the way he's thinking. I think
It's far off. Yeah. That's a point.
that's the point. I mean, these are all new experimentation that this digital has thrown up. It's just shaken up that paradigm. I think, as I said, short films will make a comeback because it now would become much more easier to show those short films. So at the same time, I don't think this 2 hour format, which is very close to if you think of the old customs of a family gathering and telling stories, that's not going to go away. So
Yeah,
new
because
forms are going to come.
you from telling stories, podcasts have come back. It's called the second wave.
Exactly. And that was bringing me to the second point, which was that how many 25-year-olds today go to watch movies? Actually, not a whole lot.
True.
It's a very not in India. India is still very dominated by the young segment. But in the US, large number of 25-year-olds don't even have a TV at their home. Everything is being consumed on their handheld platform, whether it's a mobile or a smartphone or tablet or whatever have you.
Right.
So yeah, so we are in for some interesting stuff.
Another point also I wanted to bring in, let's say as filmmakers, it's only good for us that our content is available on platforms for sending. Otherwise, we would remember those days that we would have to send the DVDs around. There was nothing else.
You carry
Those days,
please watch, please watch, please watch.
yeah.
And then you
That's
go to his office the next, 1 year later, and you see that the DVD is lying in the same way.
Yeah. Even the films you send to the festivals that are right now with the Vimeo link, you can at least know whether it's been watched or not. The DVD, nobody had a clue.
Exactly.
And new production houses, or let's say new producers, taking an interest, because right now there is at least some light at the end of the tunnel in terms of what are they going to do with the content. Look at the earlier days. You make a movie, there's maybe a satellite right to kind of think of. There was a DVD right once upon a time, which no longer exists. But at least now with digital, you have a certain benchmarking which you can do in terms of financials. And that I think is only good, because a lot of people are coming into this particular trade because they know that at least there is some way they can monetize that particular content.
So I think this has brought up another very important point for me, which is the production side. That of course, big studios and big companies can do a lot of production with all kinds of equipments. But what can you do, say, with an iPhone? So I had another thing prepared, but I think I'm going to go to the movies instead.
Right.
Can you play the movie 1.0? Thank you. So this is an iPhone 11 Pro movie. Just look at the content. Just look at the quality. This is all shot in iPhone 11 Pro.
Absolutely.
Look at this. It's very short. Okay, so that's so now let me do another thing. Let's compare iPhone with, say, Red Scarlet. Red Scarlet you don't really get anymore, but so here it is. The Red Scarlet on the left, iPhone Pro on the right. You can see the difference very clearly. How much better Red is, but iPhone Pro 11 Pro is nothing to scoff at. Color tones are so much nicer with Red. Dynamic range is so much nicer. Highlight roll off is so much nicer. As you can see from here, things are kind of rolling off. Like now here, it's kind of crunchy. This is it's a little fast. You cannot see probably, but the maybe once it's finished, play it once more. What you see is that in this one actually I think the iPhone is better. This one is better.
Absolutely.
But the point I'm making is that if you take the iPhone and then you try to do any kind of post correction, it's really horrendous. With Red, you can do some beautiful stuff. All of that is true. Low light capability of Red is so much better that you can see it. I think I'm going to play it once more. When I play it once more, look for resolution.
You should. Yeah. Can we have it once more?
Look for low light. Look for color. Look for how you can adjust your depth of field, which you can do way better in Red, of course. And you can see the comparisons next to each other. That Red is definitely better. Red Scarlet, though, is one of the lower line product. But if you showed me the next scene that's going to come up with iPhone, this scene, I wouldn't be necessarily that much bothered or these comparisons. So
in fact, in a few shots, the iPhone 11 Pro, the resolution looks, to the naked eye, it looks better. Like this, for example, the iPhone X. This is better. Even this.
Well, but that's the point here, that if you try to do any kind of post processing with it, it completely falls apart. But with Red, you can get to this kind of a scene. So that's the point. So there is a reason why Red Scarlet costs 20 times the price of iPhone Pro. But low light is not as good. bright light and the streaks and so on are bad in iPhone, but it's pretty good, pretty darn good. And if you actually have, along with that, uh, 5 things: a fog machine, which always adds a cinematic quality, shoot at the right frame rate, and therefore you need, if you're shooting outdoors, you need a ND filter,
Right.
you need a gimbal, which
Gimbal.
makes beautiful, steady camera moves, and you practice with it a little bit. You can get very cinematic moves. Number 4 is a slider, so that you can do a bit of a dolly kind of a movement.
Movement.
And number 5 is what is called DOF adapter. So DOF adapter is a very interesting device which you attach in front of the iPhone. And what it does is that it's a lens, it's a regular lens that projects the image on a transparent screen. And the iPhone then images that transparent screen.
Okay.
As a result, you all of a sudden, the iPhone, actually, can you put up a PowerPoint 2.0 for a second? But no, the PowerPoint 2.0, not the film. It's taking a little bit of time, but it's an attachment, and it go all the way down to the last slide. There's a lot of things to talk about. I will not talk about those. Those we can wait later on. This slide, the picture on the bottom left, that's a DOF adapter. What it does, as I said, is that it allows you to do this depth of field, choosing your depth of field, which any filmmaker would want to do, which unfortunately with iPhone being so tiny a camera, you can't do very well. I mean, if you looked at the shots that I was showing you, the movie, the short movie clip, you saw that iPhone, everything was focused, while with a red camera you could bring the things in and out of focus much better. So, but this DOF adapter, that part is gone. So now, can you play the movie number 3.0? And here you will see with this DOF, you get these blurred backgrounds. You see how beautiful the backgrounds are and how beautiful cinematic it looks. This is shot on an iPhone 11 Pro.
Who would believe it?
Who would believe it? But this is with the DOF adapter, so that you see the background is blurred while your subject is in focus. You see the background is kind of blurred, and you can blur it even more, as you see in this shot. Now, this you cannot do with the iPhone in and of itself, but this is a very cinematic shot, which you can do with this DOF adapter. So my point is that for small production houses or independent filmmakers, it has become that much easier. You buy an iPhone Pro and these other,
Or maybe why buy? You can rent out, because right now the iPhone Pros are available on rent.
Sure, if you want to do that, wait for the iPhone 12. I mean, by the way, there's a very interesting situation set up. But let me finish the point. The point is that iPhone Pro and this few of these adapters and attachments, which is probably another $1,000, $2,000, you are set to make good movies, and that's huge. I think that's huge, and something that would be, iPhone is already 4K, so you can easily, Netflix compatible. In fact,
in fact, Netflix and Apple, both of them have commissioned projects which are and especially, I think we were talking offline when we were discussing about the session. The ease of shooting these live events and these live shows with an iPhone, get on the stage.
Unbelievable.
Crowded situations.
Cost and ease, which are the things that actually drive a technology. For me, it's a huge deal. That should I own a Red? Should I own a Sony A7S3? Or should I? In fact, I was having this discussion with a friend of mine. Or should I own an iPhone? Or all three. I don't know. This is we are living in a very interesting times.
And you never know what is going to be thrown at you tomorrow in terms of this. These phone makers who are really taking the competition right up there.
Sure. So I think
Samsung is also. I'm not fond of Samsung, but I've been to Korea and I've been blown away with the kind of the K-drama craze, and my daughter's heavily into it, so I've had to watch. Certainly, the craze is phenomenal. The quality is fantastic. So I'm sure that they are also looking at catering to that kind of a not
100%. 100. So now moving to the other side, I think if you go to the big studios, so the big fight with Netflix, two major things happened this year in this COVID time. Two major things happened. Number one was that Universal released Trolls World Tour instead of on theatrical, because they could not because of COVID, online with this thing called PVOD. PVOD is premium VOD, where you actually kind of buy the movie. So I think they had for $20 in their platform called Peacock. They Peacock, they had you could basically, even now I think you can go there and pay $20 and you can watch the movie as many. I actually don't remember how long you can watch the movie for, whether you watch it for 1 week or 2 weeks, something of that. And it's not buying the movie; it's watching the movie.
okay.
But that's a huge deal, because for the first time a movie came out. I mean, this kind studio released a movie without going to theatricals, no theatricals, and it got some $100 million in rental fees. Not, I mean, they were expecting maybe $150 million from theatricals, $100 million here already. But the more important thing is this, that they got to keep 80% of those fees as opposed to 50% in a distribution.
So makes sense. Even in an Indian scenario, with these slate of films, so the whole war bringing us to the next subject, the OTT versus theatrical. So in this COVID pandemic situations, which has been a boom for the OTT platform, they have snapped up films which have, like say, Gulabo Sitabo, starring Amitabh Bachchan and an Ayushmann. But the amount of the Lakshmi Bomb starring an Akshay Kumar, who's been phenomenal in terms of box office. So it's definitely opened up the Pandora's box, and the theaters had issued long statements that they were expecting support and all of that. Having said that, the kind of money they had guaranteed to these producers and the production houses, maybe if you would have released it in the box office and counted on kind of the theatricals, it might not have been as good.
Exactly.
Wherein you get a guaranteed fees which might not go through the roof, but then you are more than secure. You make up your profits because you're giving them an advantage. It's a win-win situation, I think.
So I think for big studios, the second point that I was making. So that was the first point that they released. So Universal has said that from now on they would do pretty much simultaneous release of theatrical and digital. That's a huge change.
Right.
AMC, one of the largest movie chain in the US, had a shit fit. They actually initially said that we are going to boycott Universal. Then we are going to show any Universal movies. But just recently, I think a couple of weeks back, maybe a month back, I think something of that kind, they have come into an agreement where AMC will allow this digital release after 17 days, which must include.
Yes.
Okay, that's a huge deal. That now both. That's what I was saying. That theatricals and digital will coexist. And the third thing that has happened is that all big studios are investing in their own VOD platforms. So Netflix today is the largest. It has some 195 million, followed by Amazon, which I think 75 million worldwide subscription. But at the 10 million range is Disney is probably 20 million. I can't remember the number. I think I have it somewhere, but it's or maybe 60 million. 60 million is, I think, is Disney. Don't quote me on this, but it's in that range. But all of them, Universal, Paramount, all of them have started pushing their VOD platforms. Like Peacock is now coming as a tier. All of them are planning to have their digital side as well. So studio, and if the new buying of theatricals will happen, that's another feature. And then the digital side. In fact, Disney has started now. Disney has not started, stopped licensing their movies to Netflix.
Okay.
They're losing money as a result. They're losing money as a result. Some $300 million, nothing to scoff at. But they want to build up their platform, so their movies go straight to their VODs. So that's the really the fight that's happening.
Yeah, in fact, obviously you know about UFO movies. The guys we send our films to process out here in India, they've come up with their own OTT called Plexigo. In
Yeah,
fact,
I mean, I didn't know that, but sure. I mean,
they have, and the automatic advantage to them is, most of us have already, had to go and give them processing fees to get onto the theaters. If I'm talking about our past films, so they are giving off that the initial markup fees for movies which are already there and they have the
right.
list. So they
Yeah.
are just it's just a question of following up, because everything has gone through them. So they'll just tell that, why don't, and it's a non-exclusive kind of deal. Start to make money and all of that. So it's like very interesting. Book My Show, which is a very big platform out here, book tickets in India, they have opened up their own.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think the biggest question that's coming up again for the middle range films is that how do they get noticed? If they don't get theatricals, how do they get noticed? Of course, I think movie any of these festivals, film festivals, will take a new importance. And the other thing that's happening is the like Metrograph Digital Initiative. I don't know if you heard about it. So what they have started doing is they do these screenings, sort of live screenings to a community of people. So they're building their community. And the idea is that we would have the thing, then there would be a Q&A after that, there would be discussion forums after that. So those are the new ways I think mid-range films will get noticed, while the big movies will get find equally, at least for next foreseeable future, I'll say at least next 10 years, theaters and digital side by side. Because I think theatricals, because of the cultural pull, is not going to go away that easily.
No, they cannot, because again, that's an experience. So it's like, kind of an event for you. You look forward to that particular weekend where you go and do that. As you were saying about the film festivals, even at I watched more than we have like some 65 entries in the section I am a jury for, and so many phenomenal films, which definitely out of which not. Let's say most of them are like kind of niche, and they would only find the proper voice on a digital platform.
Yeah. But I mean, after finding the place in digital platform, how do they get noticed? I mean, I think that's a question that's on everybody.
Yes, because again, that's also a problem we're facing. Too much of content.
Yeah, because I mean, it's one thing to find a place. The other thing is to get lost in the crowd, right? I mean, that's another very big issue. But we have already passed 1 hour mark. So let me talk about some of the new stuff that's happening.
Absolutely.
I think I would start by showing playing a trailer of Lion King, which many of you may have seen, the new Lion King, the 2019.
Yes.
Let me play the trailer. Can you play the...
Life's not fair, is it, my little friend? While some are born to feast, others spend their lives in the dark. Begging for scraps.
Everything you see exists together in a delicate balance. While others search for what they can take, a true king searches for what he can give.
Run away, Simba, and never return.
You must take your place in the circle of life.
Okay, so you saw the trailer. I'm sure many of you have seen it. Many of you may not have. Why did I show this trailer? It looked like another movie, right? I mean, just another movie, except that the characters instead of humans are. This is not an animation. This is not. Doesn't look like your regular animation. Doesn't look like your cartoon movies. It's like a regular movie where the characters instead of humans are lions and other animals. But it looks like a regular movie, right? Wrong. Every single frame of that is digitally generated, except for one shot in the whole movie, a sunrise shot right in the beginning. Except for that, every single shot is digitally generated. I wanted to pause for a second. I mean, when I learned about this, I was shocked. This has given rise to what one calls the virtual production, and this is really the new normal, where the entire thing it's an entirely different ecosystem of how you operate, how you work. So this is this has come from a complete two different strands. One is gaming. Gaming has improved, and this GPU that I was talking about has improved to a point where you can do fantastic rendering of stuff in real time, super real time actually, because gaming has very high speed motions.
Right.
Second is VR, virtual reality. Virtual reality, at one point everybody thought that virtual reality would be the way people watch movies. It didn't happen. I mean, at least not in our generation. Maybe the next generation will. Maybe holographic screens. I think that would be the way things are going to go, not VR. But what VR did is that you now digitally create something, and using VR you can actually pre-visualize it. So you're as if you are in a real set, as if you are in the real location. Like all of these shots that we saw in Lion King were digitally made, and you can, through VR, you can actually get an immersive experience as if you're in the jungles of Africa. And can you bring up PowerPoint number 3? And what happens is that it's an entirely different way of looking. So you will see that everybody's sitting on the floor, on the production floor, with VR glasses.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of
similar to what A.R. Rahman is trying with the 99 songs.
Yeah. So in this case, Rob Legato, he's a VFX supervisor on the top left thing. He's producing something on the screen, and the DP, Caleb, he's looking at it through his VR to say, okay, yeah, I don't like it this way. Maybe make it go this way, tilt it up, or bring the sun in, and so on and so forth. The second thing that happens is that the director, which is the second top,
the next slide.
top left. No, keep on this view graph itself. The Caleb, the DP, can actually change the orientation. That, okay, I don't want to look at it from here. I want to look at it from down below or above. So he can change the perspective on screen. Like this is something that you cannot do with real environment. Entirely digital. Then actors like who are playing Hyena, they're actually on the screen. And you can see Eric Andre on the bottom left picture with the director, John
Right.
Favreau.
Right.
And they are emoting with each other, and that is being shot with a camera, with a proper camera, sometimes with a techno crane. The idea is that you're going to shoot that, and that's what the animators will use to give real life, texture and character to the characters. So they actually shoot people performing, and maybe you do a push, and the digital push happens in the same way on the digitally generated characters.
Phenomenal.
And they actually, like on the bottom right picture, you can see they actually, with a steady cam, moving around, pushing on a digitally generated screen, how you would perceive on screen. So the entire thing is created digitally. It's an absolutely phenomenal way of filmmaking, where the entire thing is in your control. And of course, in this case, there was no live action, in the sense that you didn't have human characters there at all, unlike the Jungle Book. But here, all the characters were created. By the way, I mean, the amount of work that went in, it's unbelievable that that there's some 6,000 hair strands they gave to Simba. And when you have air, when you have wind, and the hair is going to move, they created that. It's amazing. This is entirely made up. There is nothing real, and everything is real. So creating this virtual reality and making it appear on screen where you can't even tell that it's not a movie that is shot in real life is just it's mind-boggling to me.
Absolutely.
And this is a very important thing in COVID times, where we are talking about how we are going to do stuff. Well, here it is. And by the way, and can we go to the next slide, please? This is not just for big guys. There is a company called Quixel that has come up with, these are all digitally generated scenes by Quixel, where you have this mega scans of different things that they have scanned already as small pieces. And then they have something called bridges, where you add textures to those. And then you have a mixture where you go and put in place. So like the picture on the right that you can see, where you have these, in the middle, you have these elements, like a part of a rock. You can place it anywhere, light it anywhere you want. So it's you and I can actually start making completely unreal reality. We don't have to do anything in terms of going to location. You want to shoot at a crowded street, we'll give you. You want to shoot in a house, you don't need of course you need a production designer, because he will kind of tell you, this is what I need, this is what I need. All will be digitally created. So the post-production comes pre-production.
Absolutely. So what we'll have to kind of weigh in, just the question. So basically what we need to do is just budget it out.
Yep. Yep. More in terms of thinking has to be different. That, I don't have to look for a location. I'll create a location. I want a 1890s house. I'll give you an 1890s house, not 1892 house.
Right.
So that becomes it opens up stuff in a way that I think this is something that is definitely coming, and that I bet in this COVID time, this kind of technology will become cheaper and cheaper. The issue is, when will it become cheap enough that
everybody can use it?
Use it, and I think we are getting there. Lion King is certainly not something that you and I can use, but Quixel, we are getting there.
And that's the best kind of news for any, let's say, content creator, because you can get rid of so many costs in terms of logistics and travel and all of that.
Absolutely, 100%. It's now the VFX supervisor becomes your location manager.
Absolutely, yeah. You're doing a virtual recce, so
Yeah. Your production designer and VFX supervisor are one and the same.
Absolutely.
So I think that brings me to the last thing that I want to talk about, because we are already at 1 minute 15 time already. Last thing I want to talk about, which is one of my pet things, which is digital humans. So, most of our budget, especially if you're making a movie, Hollywood movie, goes in paying the stars. When can we get rid of the stars? Not in the Netflix way, but our way. When can we create entirely digital humans? And there's some very, very, very interesting stuff that's happening. Of course, you have watched, Avatar created this human-like characters. But those are human-like, not humans. And I think there's a very, very big difference. But we've seen some of these, the curious case of Benjamin Button, Brad Pitt, where he was aged. Not aged. He was both aged and youngified. I don't know what the English word is. Irishman, that Scorsese movie. One of the reasons so much is Robert De Niro was de-aged. Will Smith recently, the same thing happened in, I forget the name of the movie, Gemini something.
That's streaming currently on Netflix.
Gemini something, I forget the name.
It's called Gemini.
So let's watch this digital this movie, and this is digital humans, and we'll talk about that after the movie is played. So short clip. So can we play the 6.0 movie, please?
My name is DigiDoug. I'm not actually a real person. I'm actually a copy of a real person. Created this digital version of me that looks remarkably like me, and it runs in real time.
Most recently, the company built a completely digital, younger version of Will Smith for Paramount Pictures' sci-fi film Gemini Man. Digital human technology also helped make Robert De Niro appear decades younger in Netflix's mob drama, The Irishman. This light stage is perhaps the most advanced device there is for creating these high-resolution facial scans. It took hundreds of pictures of me, making a series of strange faces in a variety of light settings. The data captured is so detailed that an artist can use a computer to replicate what my face would look like in any place, at any time, making any expression.
What we're trying to do is take my image and use it to control the face of somebody else.
Okay, so it has raised many questions, of course. First thing I want to point out is that as amazing as this technology is, it's still years and years away from really being used. And the reason is, when you saw the last part of the clip, you kind of saw it, that there is somewhere there is a fakeness to the close-up, especially when they speak. There is a fakeness. It's acceptable, but there is, you know, that it's not really real.
Right.
And I think that's where we are fighting evolution. Evolution has tuned our brain to very minute changes in our facial expressions of connections between, for instance, when we speak, our lips start moving a fraction of a second before we start speaking. And it changes depending upon who's speaking, which consonant or vowel is being spoken. These are extremely difficult things to replicate digitally. So as close as we're coming, and one of the places it's coming is, for instance, that to try your clothes, you can put in your 3D picture and you can try your clothes.
I think it all started with which was a good thing with your eyeglasses. So that's the first 3D kind of thing. Without stepping out, they had these similar looking kind of shapes on the face, and you have your webcam and you can
correct
which made sense, because like you generally don't need to kind of go out because everything is like online. This is pre-COVID time, so you would like to drive home that advantage of not having to step out and choosing your let's say pair of glasses.
Correct. Or, for instance, digital concierge, where they'll tell you which restaurants you can go to and so on. And they're happening in a digital way.
Right.
Those are fine. But the question is, can you replace a movie actor close-up with completely digitally generated and for long periods of time? And I don't know.
Getting there.
Very close. It's very close, but very close is not good enough. I mean, that's what I'm talking about evolution. We can actually, one of our evolutionary development is that we, by looking at facial expressions, we can judge a lot of things and often misjudge, but judge a lot of things.
True.
That communication, that non-verbal communication, which happens visually, to understand what their body language is or what they're really thinking or how they're approaching me. A simple friend or foe, are they really communicating with me? Are they really in with me with the emotions, or they're doing something fake? Being able to tell fake from real. I mean, this is actually one of our major evolutionary development. We get it wrong most large part of the time, but that ability is what throws off this digital generation, that where
Right.
Something, and everything is there, but something is not right. And this has been the
And
case.
you can make that out.
This has been the case for last 10, 15 years. From 2005, this work has started. And I don't think it's very much like the self-driving car. They were supposed to be here in 2020. Forget about it. Nothing to do with COVID. The technology just wasn't ready. It's it's like in an exam to get 80% of marks. It's pretty it's okay, easy enough. Every percentage more takes that much more difficulty. It's the same kind of thing. Same with the self-driving car. Same with creating digital humans. So the sad part is that I think Akshay Kumars of the world still have their
They're kind of holding.
they will still have their pound of flesh for a while to come.
I think there was a question being thrown at you in terms of Netflix.
I think we should end here and then take a few questions.
Yeah. So Ram Nanda has a question for you.
Netflix abruptly cancelled season 2 of 2 different shows. Yes, I saw that. There's power and dynamics. I don't understand the question really. Do you agree this?
So he's just basically asking you your opinion about, do you agree with power dynamics and capitalism? Specific, let's say this being given to you as an example.
I mean, look, we live in a capitalist world. We are at the mercy of those who give us content. I mean, you have this OTT. If they choose to cancel their shows, who are we to say anything? I mean, honestly, what shit Universal dishes out to you, or for that matter, any of our big studios dishes out to you, what can you do? Your only choice is to consume or not consume. And we can go into a much bigger ethical and political and ideological questions of capitalism, but I don't think that's what this forum is for. But yeah, I mean, the fact of the matter is that whether we like it or not, we live in a capitalist world, and it has its own set of constraints. I mean, for us, the question always has been, yes, the entertainment industry is driven by profits. It's not driven by making art. I mean, I wish we had those Maharajas who would, kind of give us patronage. Netflix is kind of getting in that zone right now where they want to get prestige. So they are doing prestige projects. So I hope those prestige projects carry on. Hope they have a commitment to art. But, at the end of the day, is an executive sitting in Sony or Universal that different from an executive sitting in Amazon or Netflix? Would they have different ethical standards? They have different cultural standards. I think the answer is self-explanatory. I don't have to. It's a rhetorical question.
Any more questions?
Oh, yeah. That's a very big question. That what happens to the royalty? What happens if you create something completely, not even a star, somebody completely different, somebody not even Radhika Apte, somebody not even Nawazuddin Siddiqui. Forget about Amitabh Bachchan and Akshay Kumar. Somebody you haven't seen ever. Who do you give the royalty to? And what would, for instance, Akshay Kumar charge if we put him in that box you saw with some 35 cameras, and say that, okay, sir, you have to give a sitting for 3 hours, and how much would he charge? The same 80 crores, 1 crore? I don't know. I mean, look, the last part of the stuff was not talking about the economics of it or the financial elements of it. I was just talking about technology being available, and the technology is getting available. I mean, the fact that you saw Irishman, and I actually, when I saw Irishman, I said, they have done a huge amount of makeup to Robert De Niro, because I know what Robert De Niro looks like now. I said, wow, that's quite amazing. And then I heard that no, it was not makeup, it's digital.
And that's the first thing I think which struck everybody, those who watched, that how can they look so young? It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Because these kind of really legends you would like to kind of hold on to their performances for that much more, that
Exactly.
bit longer.
Exactly. By the way, there is an app available right now, I think, which can de-age you, which can, you can kind of take your current picture and give them probably some old pictures or something like that, and can make you look.
Has that been developed in China? Because then we'll not be able to.
China or Japan, I think. I think it's in Japan.
The Chinese apps, as you know, are all being banned out here.
Oh my God! I mean, and then let me not go into that, but never mind.
So I just hope it's been developed in Japan. Yeah, they are like Southeast Asian countries. They're pretty crazy about that, and they're very big on, they're like Facetunes and stuff.
Absolutely. But to it's one thing to take a still picture or even a moving picture and make it somewhat different. Like face tracking is a very easily available technology. There's this editing software called Kamua, which can pretty much automatically edit by keeping you in focus all the time, or you can choose who you want to keep in focus in a group. That's another amazing video editing technology that's available. But yeah, I mean, what the finances as well as security issues, what is to prevent me from taking your picture and make you say something completely different? It actually happened with who's the Facebook CEO, Zuckerberg, and I think that is there are ways of getting around that as well. But I think right now it's more of the technology development rather than the economics.
Any more questions?
So I think, we're kind of coming to a conclusion. I think my two takeaways, maybe three takeaways, is that one is that film and digital will exist side by side for quite a while. I don't think there is getting away from that, COVID or no COVID. COVID, of course, will give a big blip to the films, but it will come back. I think the big guys, big studios are getting used to digital. I think that's probably the biggest change that's happening. So I think going forward, digital release and film release will happen side by side. And the third thing, and the most crucial thing, is that it's becoming possible because of virtual production for different segments of movie makers, from large scale movie makers like Lion King to smaller mom and pop shows, to use virtual production or take advantage of certain aspects of virtual production, and to take certain advantages of improvement in camera technology, as I talked about with iPhone, to make lots of stuff at a very low cost but with high quality. And by the way, the quality requirement doesn't become any less when you go to a small handheld. And actually, the quality requirement of a big 70-inch TV and a small screen is at least about the same, if not more, in the handheld screen. So quality is going to be important, at least internationally, may not so in Indian context, but internationally. And you can achieve that right now through this virtual production and these low-cost cameras. And that, I think, is a great news for independent filmmakers.
So basically, to sum up what you want to say and what kind of we all want to harp in, is nobody's stopping you anymore from going ahead and making that film of yours.
Yep.
And I think one of the prime examples are these films coming out of India for the Oscar contention. Bulbul Can Sing and The Village Rockstars.
Sure.
Fabulous films. And she's a self-trained filmmaker. She shot it herself. So it's like, and I think there's another question. Technicians working for OTT aren't getting enough credits like theatrical releases do. What's your comment on this?
Technicians, meaning, are you talking? I don't know. Technicians, by you mean the filmmaker?
There's recently been a little bit of a controversy in terms of they have, I think, that much of space for their credit list. So there have been some omissions which.
Okay. I wasn't aware of that. So that's a very very important question. But I would put the other side of the thing is also very true, which is for in the US, when you're in a studio environment, very often and even in India, the producers or the studio heads or the studio executives try to dictate your artistic content. And this is true even for filmmakers like Scorsese and so on. And I think going to the OTT platforms for now gives you that freedom, that because there is a new kind of form, so there is much more freedom in how you do your art. But I think the question that was raised, I wasn't aware of this, is it's a pretty important one. And I think it goes to the question that I raised in general, is that how does a content creator and all of those who are working in it get noticed in the digital platform? Digital platform, as I say, the plus is that you can have your thing shown. The negative is that how do you prevent yourself from getting lost in the crowd?
Or how do you kind of, stand out, make yourself,
Or
make
how
your
do
work?
you stand out? How do you stand out? I mean, I think that element, people are beginning to think. I think movie film festivals will play a much bigger role. I think these individual screenings, like this initiative that I talked about, those will play. Creating those communities will create a much bigger role. I think.
Yes, because basically we do not kind of have a measurement tool as such. Like, theatricals will have their box office numbers. So for an OTT, a measurement tool, standardized measurement tool hasn't yet been. But something
Very
like
important point you made. Very important point you made. I think that is a very big issue. Like when this Trolls World Tour was released, or Sandra Bullock's movie, I forget the name of the movie, Tenet, I think. I can't remember.
yeah,
I think
the last one, that's the new one.
Release. How do you know what the impact is? Is it by number of new subscriptions you create, number of views?
So no, I think they are going to have kind of measurable tools like we have on the television, like a park.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's something which they are going to bring into the ambit, because eventually it will be an advertisement model for everybody, right?
Sure.
So they need to measure. They need to measure, and right now it's a bit of kind of a shot in the dark. Everybody's getting into it, figuring out what's the kind of gauging, testing the water. Eventually, as you said, and as we agree, that consolidation is bound to happen. So when we have, like, let's say maximum of a 4-5 player, or let's say 6-player kind of a scenario, then this will play a role.
I mean, right now we're in a situation where every platform is looking for content.
Yeah.
Right? And that situation won't exist for a very long time.
Absolutely.
So that's when all these standardizations will happen. I mean, we have another good 5-6 years of
experimenting.
Free ride. Well, there ain't no free lunch. That's a saying in America.
That's true. But as they say that, make hay while the sun shines. So these 5-6 years, let this play havoc and be a golden period for all us creative filmmakers and all the content creators.
Yeah.
So I think on that note, Bedo, it's like we've crossed the time, and I would like to once again thank you for having this conversation. It was bright and enriching and really enlightening for me. I'm sure.
Thank you for bringing the Indian perspective, which was so fantastic. I mean, this was an amazing session, and I would like to thank PRSI for putting this up.
Absolutely, I was coming to that. Shomajit and the PRSI team needs a whole lot of accolades for taking this to the viewers and making this happen. Thank you, Shomajit, and
I hope we are in a conversation again soon.
I am sure, and maybe I just hope that it's let's say face to face and not on a virtual platform. We've had enough of this, man.
I agree. Great.
On that note, good night from India and a good day. Let's say the day has begun for you. Good day, Bedo, in Los Angeles, and wherever you are in the world. Have a good day. Good night. Great weekend ahead. Thank you. Signing off.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.